All right, it is now 7:33. We know we're starting a little later than usual this evening, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And so we just want to welcome everyone to our third installment of our financial awareness seminar. This evening, we're under the topic of pivoting your strategy, how to manage your business strategy and pricing in an inflationary environment. And we know that this is a hot topic, a very timely topic, and we're excited this evening to have our head of post-funding, Leo Rolle, to lead this presentation, who will also accept your questions at the end. And we will do that via the chat. So before we begin, I will be your moderator for this evening. My name is Paige Hanna. I'm the Assistant Director of Marketing here at the Access Accelerator. And so if you have any questions for the duration of this presentation, you could go ahead and drop them in the chat. We will try to get as much through as much of the questions as possible. Sorry, I meant comments. And I will allow Mr. Rolle to begin and take it away.
Thank you for that, Paige. So good afternoon, everyone. Good evening now, everyone. As Paige would have mentioned, I am the head of post-funding. And what the post-funding department does is on a monthly basis, a team of advisors advise clients on the way forward in terms of pivoting, financial coaching, advocacy, mentorship, incubation. And so essentially my team and myself are paid to think. And when I say to think, it means to think and help clients to move from one level to a next. The topic tonight is one that is very near and dear to my heart because I always look at it in terms of the frog in a pot of boiling water analogy, right? The frog sits in the water is cool, room temperature, whatever it is, and it continues, as the water continues to get hot, rather than the frog jumping out, it sits there and boils to death. And so that's really when I look at small businesses or businesses on the whole, in terms of having a pivot strategy and a strategy to stop and have a look around and see what is the next move, what is the next direction. Sometimes they're so tied to the overall business mechanism or the idea that they don't realize that, hey, it's time to pivot. The industry has changed, the market has changed. So there are some tips and tricks and strategies that we'll go through tonight. We'll be about an hour or less, but we'll talk about pivoting your strategy and tips and tricks on how to manage your business strategy and pricing in an inflationary environment. Of course, what is inflation? So inflation really and truly denotes, or it speaks about, the systematic incremental changes in the overall level of prices of goods and services over time. So what is the trajectory of prices that you see over time? Was this good or service $100 today, and next week or next month or next year it's now $300? All of these various incremental changes with the level of prices of goods and services speak to inflation. Governments measure inflation by comparing the current prices of a said good or service to what previous prices were. So what we do usually from my department and from an organizational standpoint is we look at the historical financials of clients and we say, last year this time, you may have been charging $200 for a service or a good. What drive or what factors cause the price to move from 200 to 400? And really and truly, there are factors, there are things at play that drive and that cause inflation, and we'll learn about them more tonight. What are the causes of inflation? So government spending. As government begins to spend more, of course, it drives the prices of goods and services up. There's something called a monopoly. And so usually when a company or a government has a monopoly on a certain good or service, then it kind of gives them the leeway to drive or to steer prices where they want them to go. Demand exceeding supply. So in the law of economics, when demand exceeds supply, it says that we have a scarcity of resources. When that happens, obviously, if I need more of a good or service and there is less of that good or service being produced, it causes a scarcity on the market, and so it drives the price of that good or service up. That's one of the biggest causes of inflation. Higher wages. There's a saying, the more you have, the more you want. And so usually when persons begin to get to have or earn higher wages, it trickles down and it causes prices of goods and services to increase because of that extra wage or that extra incentive for higher wages. Interest rate cuts. When persons have interest rates, of course, are tied to debt funding and whatever type of loans or consumer spending you have. And so when those interest rates are cut, meaning I'm paying less in that avenue, and so I'm paying less for my loans, I'm paying less for items. Obviously, it drives the prices of other things up. Why? Because I have money and more money to allocate to other things. And so when interest rates drop, usually inflation follows in terms of the prices of things going up. Increase in disposable income is obviously tied to your higher wages. And so if persons have more access to disposable income, then obviously they will be spending more, which will cause prices and inflation, which will cause prices to increase and inflation to obviously be inevitable. Tax increases, whenever there's an increase in tax, we see that obviously because of the increase in taxes, prices of goods and services increase, which simply follows the line of taxes. So when that was implemented, let's say something was $100, now it's $110. Why? Because there's VAT included on that. And so what happens then is it drives the prices up of goods and services, which follows the pattern of inflation. And simply, it's basic economics, as I said. As prices increase, dollar value decreases. What does that mean? Simple. If I could have walked in the food store today and get 5 bags of grocery for $100, as prices of goods and services increase, then the dollar value decreases. So the $100 that I could have spent in the food store today, tomorrow may only give me 2 bags of grocery. Why? Because the dollar value has now decreased as prices have increased. Types of inflation. So people usually believe that, okay, prices are going up, it's inflation. But we don't realize that there are actually types of inflation or various specific inflationary measures that are tied to inflation. One such type of inflation is demand pull inflation. This is when products are the demand for products far exceeds the capacity for production. What does that mean? As we said before, when there's an overage of demand, so more people need a specific good or service, but there is a scarcity of supply, meaning contractors, suppliers, manufacturers cannot produce this thing in enough capacity in order to meet the demand for it. We call that demand pull inflation. Then there's cost push inflation. This is the result of cost production increases. So let's take, for example, a baking industry. So today, flour, eggs, butter, all of these things have a cost associated with them. As the cost of these raw materials and labor increase, then it pushes or it causes the cost of the product itself to increase. And so that's called cost push inflation. It's the inflationary mechanism that is derived or that is fueled by the increase in production costs, meaning raw materials and labor, etc. There's also built-in inflation. And what this one is, it's kind of inflation, whereas you have a futuristic view that you kind of prepare or expect for higher prices because wages will increase and the standard of living or the cost of living will increase. And so more wages will obviously translate into higher production costs, and that will trickle into product pricing, meaning that it will go up. And so usually there's some type of built-in inflation, but the largest two that we see would be demand pull inflation and cost plus inflation. But of course, there is a mechanism for built-in inflation, whereas the supplement of increased wages to match the cost of living will have an expected ripple effect in terms of inflation. What is a pivot? So if you've ever played basketball, you realize that a pivot is allowing yourself to have that stationary position on one foot, and you're able to then have a cursory view of everything around you. It provides an opportunity to stop and take a cursory 360 view of your operations, your circumstances, and everything to determine what is your next direction. I like the idea of pivoting. Why? Because I'm able to, right where I am, stop and look at everything around me. And when I ask businesses to pivot, what I'm doing then is asking them to look at your current circumstances, look at all avenues, not just to the left, not just to the right, not just behind, not just ahead. You're looking at a 360 avenue. And so you're looking at all various mechanisms. Do I go this way? Do I go that way? Do I go ahead? Do I go backwards? Where do I go? And so in pivoting, you can then take a cursory view of your circumstances at present and, of course, determine which route you're going to take. What strategies can be used when you're looking to determine pricing during inflation? And it's always difficult because you always, when as prices increase naturally as entrepreneurs, whether we are fledgling entrepreneurs, meaning we're just starting out, or whether we are serial entrepreneurs, meaning that we are persons who are not new to it and it's not our first rodeo, most times the default mechanism is to increase prices. As inflation increases, well, here it goes, the business, the prices, the products of goods and services also has to increase. But there are other things you can do as opposed to going straightway into price increases. One strategy is mining and refining the portfolio. When I was an insurance agent, one of the things that was a big ticket item was mining your portfolio. And when we speak about mining the portfolio, what you do is you look at your existing portfolio. And so you review that existing portfolio. And from that existing portfolio, if you're a business, let's say, that has repeat clients. So every month on a let's say landscaping business, every month on a month-to-month basis, I have 10 clients who I know that I'm going to cut their yard. I'm reviewing that portfolio and I'm looking for opportunities to create value propositions. What do we mean by value propositions? What can I add to that good or service that creates value not only for the client, but continued value for the business? That may be as simple as a birthday card, a birthday greeting, any type of, and it doesn't have to be big. You can celebrate small wins. So something small that creates greater value for that client and for you as the entrepreneur. When I look at the landscaping business, or I had a client the other day that's in the pest control business, and I said to him, well, inflation is real. And so here's what you can do to create that value proposition or that mutually beneficial arrangement. Why don't you have those instances where you can have free estimates to your clients? And it was something that, even though he was a serial entrepreneur, maybe he didn't think of, or maybe it wasn't something that was right in the back of his mind. And so right then and there, while a lot of the clients may not continue to do business with me or may not do business, I still create that value proposition because they're getting a perceived value for money, whereas they get that free estimate or a small fee tied to the estimate. And so it produces or creates that mutually beneficial arrangement, whereas I kind of stay a step ahead of the inflationary mechanisms that are happening. Provide thriftier options as alternatives. Now, usually there are instances where you can simply buy, I don't like to use cheaper, and that's why I use thrifty. You can buy more inexpensive alternatives to what you're using. If I was using 100% organic eggs, maybe I use store-bought eggs. And so look at your materials, look at your goods and services and say, I can easily eliminate this expense or come lower on this expense to meet the inflation. Why? Because I'm using options as alternatives that are not as expensive as the ones that I did prior to inflation. Introduce high-end products. And this, you may find or may wonder, where is Leo going with this? When I speak about introducing higher end products, what it does is it kind of tricks the psyche of the client, or the customer. How does it do that? Let's say I'm in, and I had a friend that contacted me today, and so obviously he's in the funeral business. And so let's say I have a standard casket, and obviously inflation means that casket, the price of that casket needs to go up. What I then do is I introduce a higher end product, perhaps a mahogany casket that I didn't have before, and the price of that is so much more different than the standard casket that I had, that customers now say, oh boy, I like mahogany, but I can't afford that. Let me go with the other option. Mind you, I've already increased the price on that other option, but it's way less than that mahogany. That's a product that I simply just introduced because of inflation. So now I have staggered prices. I have more high-end products, which means that prices, there's a huge disparity between the two, and the client say, oh, I getting a deal with this one. Mine was more expensive than it was before inflation, but it's way less expensive than the higher end product that you simply just introduced. And so that's a good way to get it. You also want to look at utilizing behavioral economics. Behavioral economics is kind of a strange animal because what it does is it says that there are behavioral tactics of clients that drives their spending habits and drives their appetite for certain things. And so you may have a client who is quality sensitive versus quantity sensitive. So they may want more quality, but it can be less of the product. In that instance, you can take a lower end in the quantity. So I give you less of an item. Let's say I was selling chicken wings and the price of wings went up. Rather than 8 wings, I may now decrease to 6 wings or 5 wings because the client is not so much concerned with quantity, but concerned with quality as long as there's consistency. And then you may have a client, listen, I want my 8 wings. And so they're more concerned with quantity, sorry. And so what you can do is, of course, tailor the materials that you use. You may use less flour, you may use less egg, you may use less seasoning, you may use a cheaper packaging. Why? Because the client doesn't care about those things. What they care about is the fact that they're going to get those 8 wings as they said they were originally, regardless of what's going on in your business. So you have to look at behavioral economics and know your clients to determine whether this is a client who wants quality or whether this is a client who wants quantity. Additionally, there are clients who are price sensitive and quantity sensitive. So if I had a bundle deal or I was offering a package and now I have to remove 2 items out of my package, why? Because my clients are sensitive of price. I can't increase my prices, but I can tailor my bundle or tailor my options, whereas I'm not pricing it at the same price for less things. Then you can do that. Or there are clients who say, no, 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 I still want everything that you were going to give me. What that then means is that you're going to have to tailor your prices to suit the client with the same things that they were getting. So those are the clients who will obviously be going after the higher prices. And so you can probably get away with a slight increase. Why? Because they still want the quantity of items that they had in this package that you had originally. So that's strategy one, a lot in that, or it's very compact. But these are simple things that you can do when you mine and refine your portfolio. Strategy two, establishing pricing mechanisms. Now, as I said before, there are several, about 9 of them, different ways that people price products. The 3 that I find are the most beneficial when it comes to inflation is first dynamic pricing. And what this means is that prices shift with market circumstances when it comes to production. What does that mean? As raw materials increase, as production of those materials, labor increases, whatever the market segmentation or whatever the market is doing drives that sort of pricing mechanism. And so as market shifts and as prices of various materials, goods, services increase, then obviously my prices follow that product, that my prices follow that dynamic shift. That's one of the easiest ones to use because it allows you, and while it's easiest, you don't want to use that often, because I'm a customer. If I come into your business this week and next week the price is something else and the week after it's something else, chances are you're going to lose me. So you have to be careful with how you do it. And I have an S next to mechanisms and I have it in brackets because sometimes you may want to use more than one of these pricing mechanisms. And so you may want to have a combination of 2, or you may want to use all 3. You have to also use competitor pricing when you're looking at inflation. What that means is your prices are influenced heavily by what your competition is. You don't want an instance where you are moving with inflation, but you're pricing yourself out of the market, meaning that your prices are way beyond what your competitors are offering. Now, there's a difference. You may be a mom and pop store, and your competitor may be a large conglomerate who is able to provide pricing at a much cheaper or much reduced rate than you can, because they may order in bulk. They may have perhaps preferred vendor status. They may have discounts from their suppliers. And so I'll teach you in a later segment or a later slide how it is that you can use or leverage your networks to bring your prices down and possibly be as competitive as your competitors, as well as using those competitive advantages and that mutually beneficial arrangement. There's also psychological pricing. I love this one because people do it and they don't even understand why. And so psychological pricing appeals to the psyche of the client. What that means is you do a buy one, get one free, or a buy one, get one half off deal, or your price is $5.99 rather than $6. And in the client's mind, they run to it. Why? Because I'm getting a deal. Man, it's only a penny you're getting off. But you're playing to the psyche of the client. And so that's one that I usually like. Another type of situation when you talk about psyche pricing is around, let's say, Easter. You move all the basket items right at the front of your shop. Why? And then you say these are $3.99, not $4, $3.99. Why? Because you're playing on the psyche. You know that your clients know that it's Easter, and these are the things that they need when it's Christmas. You move all the Christmas items at the front display of the store, or as they walk in, they get this, and so or they get a basket, and you realize, okay, now I have to walk through the store and get other things. And so these are the types of things that you do when you're establishing your pricing mechanisms to meet the inflationary environment that you'll find. Strategy 3, rebranding. I like rebranding. Why? Because it always allows your clients to take a fresh look at the organization, see it through a different pair of lens. Divesting funding in marketing and public relations campaigns. They don't have to be expensive. Simple newspaper ads, Facebook ads, and you want to advertise in the market for which you're capturing. I remember there was a client, can't remember what type of business it was, but I think it was professional services. And they had an issue with marketing. And I was like, okay, where are you marketing? Well, I'm marketing on Facebook and some other platforms. And I said, but this is the type of audience you're searching for. This is your niche. These people are not on Facebook, not on TikTok, not on Snapchat. They are on LinkedIn and other professional sites. So perhaps that's your audience that you need to capture. That's your marketing tool that you need to capture. While there are some that are there. So you want to divest funding in those marketing strategies that work for your business and that capture your market where they are. And so divesting some funding in that helps to bring customers into your organizations. Conducting annual reviews with your existing portfolio. What that then does is it allows clients to have a touch. And they say, listen, you purchased from us last year. I wanted to know if the item is still working for you. Is there something else that we can do for you? You may have bought perhaps a bedroom set. Are you looking to change your mattress? And so what it does then is it primes the mill and it helps the clients. So, okay, come back in. Wow, when I came here last year, you didn't have all of these things. You rebranded, you repositioned, you retooled yourself. And so you want clients to see that on an annual basis. Now, segment or point 2 calls a lot for record keeping. You have to be good with your record keeping because otherwise you won't know who purchased from you last year. So you have to have that point of sale system. You have to have that accounting software and have good records to be able to say, I sold to this client 2 years ago. Let me go right back to this and pull this information and say, listen, I'm only calling you up. I know you purchased this bedroom set 2 years ago. I'm wondering if you're in the market for a new I'm wondering if you're in the market for a new mattress. What else can we do for you? Additionally, you can have product enhancements and innovative positioning. So you may change. I know that there was a client who, one thing she did with her ice cream packaging, turned the package gold. And it was almost like magic, instant magic overnight. And so simply rebranding, repositioning, perhaps changing a color, changing a logo, all of these things causes clients to have a second look or a fresher look at your organization. And so even though your prices may have increased to kind of go behind or to move as inflation moves, what it does is it allows customers to say, okay, I could pay that little bit extra. Why? Because I have a gold wrapper now rather than a standard white one. What that means is that now you have that prestige, you have that new look, you have that you have a revigored sense of rebranding, and persons want to have a second look at your organization. Strategy 4, strengthen your competitive advantage. And this is what I spoke about earlier. Corporate campaigns, loyalty programs. It's simple. You may create a point system, and mind you, if you have a client who is so driven by a point system that they come to your store every week to buy one single thing because they want that stamp. I remember one of our clients, when I spoke to her, I told her, well, let's look at a point system. Why not have a card, have cards made, use, and I think it was the hole puncher. And so as the client got to, once all of the hearts were filled out on the card, the client got a free meal or something of that nature. And it was such a joy because clients were coming in there and the store was bursting at the seams. Why? Because the food was good, mind you. But now I have a reason to go in there because I want my points. And so you see the clients, they go and they get their card stamped, and it created that loyalty system, whereas it strengthened the competitive advantage. What is it that we do differently? I always wonder, and I always tell clients, picture your store in a room or a closet full of black suits. There's one, if I send you to that closet and I say, bring me the black suit, you can basically pick any suit because they're all black. But if there's one red suit in that closet, that means that there's one single thing that that client is doing differently. Then you can go to the closet and I say, bring me the red suit. There's only one red suit in that closet. What do you do differently that your other clients don't do, or that other persons in your industry don't do? And you have to harp on that, and you have to develop that. And I like to use a strategy of disrupting an industry. So I may go into an established industry and there's really not, in my mind, much that I can do. But when I think about industries like the taxi cab industry that was completely disrupted by Uber and Lyft, I think of the hotel industry that was completely disrupted by the Airbnb industry. I say, listen, there are things that you can do in these industries that are already established that disrupts them and builds on your competitive advantage. Introduce new products and services. We spoke about it earlier. Introducing that high-end product, introducing a lower-end product that clients may want to go for. So when you introduce those new products and services, while the client may say, okay, I used to come to you, but I stopped coming because you don't do X, Y, and Z. Here it is now, after market research, which is the next point, I'm now able to introduce that product and service. And so clients are coming back, and not only are they purchasing that new product or service from me, but they're also purchasing the product or service that they transitioned out of my organization and stopped purchasing. KYP and KYC doesn't mean what you think. Know your product. You are the biggest driver, the biggest influencer, and your employees, your team, your staff have to know your product as well. I usually walk into businesses and I walk in with a kind of a different mindset. I walk in because I want to do a secret shopper mission. I want to see if when I walk into your organization, there is consistency in terms of how I'm served, what is said to me, how your employees know your product, they know your services. And then I also need you as an entrepreneur to know your competitors. I should be able to say at the drop of a dime, you know something? Yes, they do that over there, but they don't have parking. They're not open on Sundays. They close at 5. They don't accept credit card payments. All of these things I should know because I should be able to do my market research to determine that these are the things that are happening in my with my competitors. And so I'm then able to position myself to say, you know something, maybe we do charge a little bit more, but people buy convenience. I'll never forget, there was a business owner that came to the organization looking for funding. I think it was a barber. And he was stuck on his price point of $15. And I said to him, the industry has changed. Persons pay for convenience. If I can pay $50 for a haircut because I know that I'm going to get that appointment, I know that when I get there, the chair is open. I can walk straight to the chair. I can meet my other meetings. I may have great ambiance. Then I'm able to pay for convenience. And so you have to be able to know your competitors and know the industry well enough to know that perhaps there are things where the industry has changed and I need to pivot in order to meet those industry changes. Conducting market research. It's something that is very lacking in the Bahamas. I'm a doctoral candidate. And so my doctoral thesis speaks more to diversifying diversifying the economy to alleviate the burden on the tourism industry. I'm having a hell of a time finding research on anything relative to that. And so a lot of my research I'm having to build from scratch, or I'm having to go to US platforms to get it. You need to be able to conduct your market research by having those forums and those opportunities for feedback. Be intentional. SurveyMonkey is free. There are so many free opportunities that you can send to your clients and say, listen, I need feedback. Tell me what we're doing right. Tell me what we're doing wrong. Tell me what you're willing to pay for X, Y, and Z. If I were to add this to my product or service, would you pay X amount? What that then does is it allows you to say, based on the market and based on the research that I've done, this is where we can transition, this is where we can go. Manage your client's expectations. You always want to supersede or exceed that which is expected of you. If I'm expecting service with a smile, man, you better give me service with a smile, my name, a candle, everything. Because why? You need to manage and exceed my expectations, especially if your prices are driven by an inflationary market. And your final strategy, strategy 5, leverage those partnerships and relationships. Maximize opportunities. So you want to maximize those opportunities to bolster sales through strategic alliances. Perhaps I may have, and look at those opportunities for research and development. A warm nominator is someone in an industry or an organization who is able to funnel business in your direction. I'll give you an example. When I speak about strategic alliances and bolstering sales as a warm nominator, when I was an insurance agent, one of the biggest things I did was I joined a lot of organizations because I wanted my name to get out there, number one. But I also started sponsoring awards. So you'll find at school graduations, I may have sponsored a Head Boy Award or something of that nature. Why? Because I want people to see that not only am I giving back, but I want you to do business with me. Why? Because there's a mutually beneficial proposition. While you give me your business, I am giving back to the school. And so I've created those warm nominators because why? That entire school board system, that entire teacher system, that entire parent system, all of those persons are now referring persons to me. You need to create that ecosystem and develop that partnership, whereas anytime something happens, you're the first business that they call for those funding, those collaborations. Do your research. There are so many things that businesses can get concessions and exemptions for that you just simply don't know. So in an inflationary environment where everything is going up, your prices may very well remain consistent. Why? Because you are a business, perhaps in manufacturing or some type of other industry where you're able to get concessions and exemptions, and you can then pass that savings on to the consumer. Industry synergies. Pool your resources. Have a referral program. When I talk about pooling your resources, there was a client who is in the disposables industry. He was having a very hard time because of supply chain issues. And I said to him, listen, there are so many other persons in the same industry as yours. Why not partner with them? Bring in a whole container from China or wherever it is that you're going to bring it in, whereas you share the cost. And then you are able to then, because I'm sure that that larger supplier or that larger consumer or business may have the supply chain issue, but they buy more because they're able to then kind of predict that there's going to be supply chain shortages. Why not partner with them? Bring in as they bring in. And so you're able to then use that relationship, use that pooling of resources where it defrays the cost of you trying to do business on your own. No man is an island. Everyone needs someone else. Build those relationships, leverage those partnerships, and think of a referral program. If there are instances where you say, listen, for every 10 clients you refer to me and they do business, you get $100 or you get 10% or whatever it is that you do. That way, people are breaking down your doors because you provided that mutually beneficial arrangement. I benefit as the person referring. The person who I referred benefit because their need was met. You benefit as the entrepreneur. It's a win-win situation. Any questions for me?
All right. Thank you so
Paige,
much,
I think you were
Leo.
taking questions from the chat.
Yes, I will, but I just wanted to make a note. I hope you all were taking notes because Leo has been dropping so many gems tonight. I mean, I was writing down some of them, and then you mentioned the wings you gone for with the dropping of wings. I remember when we used to get the whole wing as a wing, and then they start cutting them in half and trying to call them wings. But obviously, inflation was probably a factor for that kind of pivot. And so if anyone has any questions, now is the time to go ahead and ask them while we have Leo's air. But I do have a question based on some of the, I guess, interaction that I've seen in the chat. So there was some persons talking about, competitors basically watching them, doing their research and keep matching their prices. And I guess how do you combat that kind of, I don't know, I don't want to call it predatory because that's what you're encouraging them to do, but when competitors are matching their prices with yours, what kind of approach would you suggest that they take?
So what I do in that instance, and it's always, you hear it a lot, persons say, oh, I don't want to give my idea because someone is going to take it, someone's going to pirate it and do it and go and open the business. Who cares? You take my idea and you open the business, but you don't have my expertise. You don't have the knowledge that I have. You don't have the industry experience that I have. And so you may go and take the business idea, but you don't have everything else that I bring to the table. And so you have to use that mutually beneficial proposition. You have to use your competitive advantage. And you have to then say, listen, you may be matching my prices, but you can't offer this. You can't offer that. I always look at the Starbucks analogy, and it's a simple analogy. It's a coffee house. There are many coffee houses, but what they did was they personalized the experience. And so they write your name on the cups, they draw a smiley face, they have this boost of energy. And so while I could get coffee right from the house next door, or the coffee house right next door, which is perhaps much cheaper, I would prefer to go there because I'm buying that type of interaction, that competitive advantage, that edge, that drive that that organization has that I don't get from elsewhere. And so I tell persons, add a little something to whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, your price may be the same as mine, or mine may be a little bit higher. That's no problem. Are you going to use the customer's name? Are you going to remember the customer's birthday? And I always say, especially people look for added small wins. And one of the biggest things that I found customers love is simply when they, let's say a customer is giving you a credit card, and now with this tapping and the code, you don't need your ID anymore. But before a time, when you provide the client's ID, one of the things when I do customer service training, the first thing I tell them to do is look at the date of birth before you even look at the name. Why? Because the customer's birthday may very well be on that day. And if you get that small thing right and you say, oh my God, today is your birthday, happy birthday, and you're happy with the customer and you're doing all that, and they'd be like, wow, the person took the time to even look and listen to what I, or even took the further onus to look and say, today is my birthday, or to use the client's name or to remember things. Um, I went into a store one day and the client say, oh, it's my bakery. I buy a lot of cakes for persons. And so she said, I called and I said, hi, I'm ordering a cake. So she said, who's this? So I said, Leo. She said, oh, Mr. Rolle. And she started talking, and how's my daughter and how's my son and all this. I'm like, pretty good. So you have to find that competitive advantage that says no matter what those competitors are doing, they can't do it the way I'm doing it. And they can add that special touch to what I'm doing that sets me apart from them. So I'm not so concerned with persons copying prices or anything of that nature.
Right, because only in a perfect world we don't have competitors, right?
Oh yeah.
And so another question that I have is, and this is a question I'm asking, is, you mentioned different methods to pivot, and how do you manage that then when you have clients with varying behaviors? Do you like use one strategy at a time, or do you focus on the larger percentage of your clientele? What would you suggest in those instances?
So that's an excellent question. There was a client who had, and I'm going to use a lot of client experiences because I learn persons usually learn better from experience and from stories. There was a client who I looked at his flyer and it didn't have prices on it, and I'm like, why would I as a client even call you if I can't find your prices on the flyer? And he said, well, you know, I don't like to give prices because they fluctuate so much. So one week it could be this, one week it could be that. While that's not good, I understood his rationale. Now, I don't think it was the right way to go about it. But there's never going to be a perfect scenario where you say, okay, this is your price because you are concerned with quality. This is your price because you're concerned with quantity. This is your price because I know I could get into your psyche. You have to be chameleonic enough or chameleon enough to know that you can meet customers where they are. So when I speak about a loyalty program, there may be a client who, okay, so I took a broad brush approach and I used perhaps psychological pricing. So all of my pricing moved towards that five, whatever the 99, buy one, get one free. And that doesn't move one client because they're more concerned with perhaps quality. What I then do is I have a more personalized approach. So I say, listen, Miss Pratt, them prices ain't for you. You come in my office, we can talk because I know what you want. And so while she may not be moved by that, I kind of use kitty cat gloves and I take the approach of every client is different. Now it puts a lot more onus on the customer service rep or the manager or the owner themselves. But when you are looking at getting ahead, you have to do the things that other persons aren't willing to do or aren't going to do. And so what I would then do is tailor my approach, especially for clients who may be of that loyalty pool or that pool who are moved by X, Y, and Z. And then my approach would be different with them. And so whereas other persons in the organization, and yes, it kind of bears on exclusivity and favoritism, but usually in creating that loyalty program, what you then do is you force other clients to move along with you. So they say, okay, this client getting X, Y, and Z, they getting the royal red carpet. Tell me what I need to do to get there. Tell me what I need to do to get that. Tell me what I need to do to be on that level. And so it kind of drives and gears your services. But that's a very good question, and one that I would use kind of selectivism in helping and to eradicate.
All right, thank you for that answer. We have another question coming in from Facebook. Is there a formula that can be worked out for built-in inflation?
So inflation in and of itself has a formula, and this is not an economics class, but I'll tell you what it is. So you're using the CPI, whatever that initial CPI was, and that's cost price index. So you're using the initial CPI, you're taking away the final CPI over the initial CPI times 100. Economics problem. What I would then recommend for clients, and it's usually when you think about inflation and you think about percentage changes, you say, the cost of the rate of inflation is X percent, Y percent. And so what you do is you look futuristically and say, if my prices are at $100 now, and I expect that in the next year, prices are going to increase or inflation will increase by 5%, 3%, then I start creating pricing strategies from now to kind of be preemptive of that 5% or 3% increase. And so you use the same formula, which is a formula for creating or finding the rate of inflation using that cost price index. But what you then do is couple it with what you expect based on market forces, and all of the data that is available, and spending habits, consumerism, all of these things drive what economists say inflation will be in years to come. And your prices can then have an expectation of moving based on what the expectation of that inflationary rate will be in years to come. Persons usually don't go that far. They simply look at their break-even analysis and say, listen, this is what I need to sell to break even. I need to move my price up to meet that point or to exceed that point. And so persons aren't usually that granular when it comes to built-in inflation, but it is a mechanism. You can use the same rate of inflation and then drive your prices based on that.
Okay, and with that question, we talking formulas, we talking economics and these kind of stuff. Is there any advice, or I guess at what point would you recommend small business owners or business owners on the whole to look externally for some help? Because I know a lot of times, like I'm in marketing, and so like sometimes everybody believe they could do marketing and they try to do it themselves, but you know, they may be walking down the wrong path. So what is your advice on maybe seeking external help or anything like that around this topic of inflation and pricing?
So not so much simply only on inflation and pricing. What I like to do, especially let's say as a fledgling entrepreneur, so I'm new to entrepreneurship, or even if I'm a serial entrepreneur, again, my department, my division is paid to think. And when we say think, to think and create ideas or to create avenues for clients. We facilitate what's called a 3-year handshake. And that 3-year handshake is done whether the client is brand new to entrepreneurship or someone who is just in their first rodeo. I would say from day one of your organization. And so if you've already launched, you're already open, I would say start now. You don't have to necessarily pay someone to do it because there are economists, persons who are savvy in these things. As I spoke about with the Access Accelerator relationship, no matter who you are, no matter how long you've been in business, from day one of you getting that loan, you have a 3-year handshake, which we facilitate, and we walk with those clients and we provide that external resources, that external help, that sort of hand holding for at minimum the first 3 years of their business. So if you are someone who opened your business from your own funding or your own capital, or you had an angel investor, or you did it on your own, you didn't go through any financing institution, marvelous. I applaud you. But when you realize that, hey, my expenses are increasing, but my income is not, or my income is decreasing, when you realize that you're not pivoting and your marketing, your public relations, whatever it is that you're doing is not bringing in the level of customers that every business, no matter what industry they find themselves, hit what's called that proverbial wall. When you get to that proverbial wall where you absolutely are at that roadblock, you need to start seeking external help. And so that be someone in marketing, someone in public relations, someone who can help you, whether it be a financial coach, someone who can help you along the path. You need to start looking from it. I would say from day one, but as we mentioned, there are some businesses that are already open. So start now. You don't have to pay. Not everyone you have to pay. And if you have the ability to pay, excellent, do that. But I would say from day one of your business page.
All right. And I mean, this is also why it's important to network and to build a strong team. Like when you're thinking of who you
Absolutely.
want on your team, if you, I don't know, if you're big enough to have a board, or if you have like a whole conglomerate of people that are going to be a part of your organization, these are the things that you think about. You want to build that strong, high level team as well. And so we do have
Absolutely.
another question. I hope you'd be able to answer it. Where can I look for a variety of exemptions? Because I'm guessing shipping is
So
probably the higher cost with what's going on with inflation right
Mhm.
now as
So
well.
I spoke about this because actually at the Access Accelerator, we are currently working on a project that will kind of put together a booklet or a portfolio for small businesses that helps with exemptions. I know he's going to kill me, but nonetheless, you can call the Ministry of Finance. You can ask directly for Mr. Whitney Kenny. Tell him Leo sent you. And he is the guru. Either him or Talman Bryce, they have in their mind, and obviously on the customs website, the Ministry of Finance website, all of these exemptions that are available for small businesses. You will be surprised at the amount of exemptions you can actually qualify for and concessions you can qualify for. Sometimes by virtue of where your business is, by virtue of it being your first purchase, by virtue of you being in manufacturing, there are so many exemptions available that we just need to do our research on doing.
All right. So thank you for that. And I see persons asking about appointments for Access Accelerator. So I don't know if you, I mean, I could take this one if you, I
Please.
mean, appointments per se, but so at Access Accelerator, once you go to our website, accessaccelerator.org, and I'll drop that on the chat as well, you'll see a tab in the corner that says join us. And so when you click that, you'll select sign up. And what you'll do is you'll put in very basic information about your company, just so we can have that on file, and then you'll get a client services form. So why this form is so important is because it lets us know, is it access capital that you're looking for? Is it advisory that you're looking for? Is it mentorship? Do you just want access to training? Those kind of questions that we ask so that we can put you on the right pathway to where it is that you need to go. There are some people who literally come to us just because they want that knowledge and expertise, maybe not necessarily funding, but we're able to put them in the right places and get them in touch with the right people. And so it's not an appointment per se, but once you follow those initial steps, we'll be able to put you on the right path with the right people for the right information. And then also when you sign up, that puts you in our database. So anytime we send out any of our email communications, if that's a new program, if that's a new training session coming up, if that's a certification coming up, you'll get direct emails to your address as well. So we always encourage persons to join our database so that you can be privy to that information as it comes through. I'll also drop some of our contact information, but I'll call it out. So we now have a head office line. It's 461-7232. We also have a WhatsApp number, 359-0626 or 359-2394. You could also reach us through our ticketing system, our help center, again, on our website, accessaccelerator.org. You click that help center, it'll take you to a knowledge base. You can find out frequently asked questions, or you could submit an actual ticket where we'll be able to track your concerns and have someone answer you and get back to you. And like I said, keep track of what it is that you're asking for. You can also email us at helpdesk@sbdcbahamas.com. So there are many ways that you can reach out to us. I see we have another question here that's asking, how long is the wait before you respond to the website application? So again, the application, if you're speaking specifically about the sign up form, once you sign up, you should get an automated response within, I would say within 24 hours. Sometimes it takes a little longer depending on your email server, but you should get a response, an automated response that would give you access to that client services form. And then after you fill that out, depending on what it is that you're asking for, within days, one of our representatives reach out to you. Leo, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
No, that's perfectly it. Paige, I really enjoy helping persons connect the dot, helping small businesses. And so, I mean, we're here for you. Access Accelerators, join us, come to us. As Paige mentioned before, you don't have to say necessarily, I'm coming for funding. If you need coaching, if you need advocacy, if you need advisory, we're here for those things as well.
Yes, and so I just want to thank Leo for taking this on tonight. I think this was a really good and informative lesson this evening. But those who may have joined later or like missed a part of the first half, we are going to be editing this and putting this up on our website. So you'll be able to find this in our video library, where you could also find some of our past presentations, our client features, anything video wise, you could actually find in our video library under resources. And so we thank you all for joining us. Thank you again, Leo, so much for this very informative presentation. I hope that you all gained something tonight. I know I sure did. And I'll be, going back, looking at my notes and seeing how I could beat the competitors out. So thank you once again, Leo. Thank you everyone for joining us and staying on this evening. Again, we will be, presenting more programming, more trainings, sessions and everything. So make sure that you stay tuned. You follow us on all our social media at Access Accelerator, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.